welcome to Shop Talk. My name is Calypso Rose and I'm director of the Inditute. We run brilliantly inspired workshops and talks all across London, and we've curated this year's Shop Talk. Digital Mums was set up to support mums to find the perfect life-work balance. They train mums to kickstart a new career as a freelancer in one of the fastest growing areas of marketing, social media. Kathryn Tyler is co-founder of Digital Mums and is in charge of the training program. She ensures that whether you want 20 hours of the week or a month, there'll be a digital mum waiting to boost your profile. In this Shop Talk, Kathryn will be exploring how to create content that people actually want to share. Thank you very much, Kathryn.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay. Yeah? Perfect. Okay, so brilliant introduction there. Yeah, we basically train mums to be social media managers and then match them with small businesses. And so we've learned a lot from working with 300 small businesses on their social media. We've also learned a lot from Buzzfeed. So I'm going to talk to you about the kind of secrets of shareable content and what you can kind of steal from Buzzfeed and apply to kind of your own businesses. So first up, a lot of people, there's a bit of a misunderstanding about Buzzfeed that it's all about lists. Has everyone, can I just ask in the room, has everyone been on Buzzfeed, read something on Buzzfeed, kind of, yeah, so quite familiar with it. It's basically very popular. People think it's a lot about lists, and there's loads of pictures about cats and kittens and funny kind of things to do with animals. You could combine cats and lists. Obviously, that would be like a winning formula. But if you don't work for a pet shop, what can you really learn from Buzzfeed? It's a lot more than lists of cats. There's all sorts of content on there. Increasingly more serious content. There's loads of stuff around politics. So it's not, you know, they're covering a whole range. So there's something that I think every business can learn, no matter what it is that they're actually doing. So these are just some interesting stats around how many people are on there. I mean, they're obviously like ridiculously successful. So it sort of pays to have a look at what they're doing and try and steal a little bit of it. You might not become quite so successful as Buzzfeed, but hopefully you can kind of learn some stuff from them. So what are the real lessons then? So first up, and we say this to everyone about everything, content, any social media platform, Twitter, LinkedIn, there's no point being on there if you're not strategic. So if you don't understand what you're trying to get out of that piece of content or out of that platform, just don't bother. And what do we mean by being strategic then? So don't do stuff just kind of ad hoc. You need to kind of think really carefully around what your goals are, who your audience is, and what exactly it is that you kind of want them to do. So try and sort of sit down and think about that. Look at your competitors. So perhaps if you're the amazing stationery lady over there, she might have a look and see what other stationery people are doing, so she can get a sense of what she thinks is good and what's not. Make plans. Think about your niche. So the stationery lady, that's her niche. It's kind of amazing stationery. So she shouldn't be branching out into parenting tips. She kind of needs to think about what's going on with her brand. And then once you kind of have got a sense of what it is that you're doing, you need to take that to a much more granular level about thinking who your audiences are. We've worked with 300 small businesses, and I'm constantly amazed by how little they know about their target customers. And when we say to them, who is your target customer, they might say, mums between 30 and 55. And I'm like, okay, that's quite a big group of people. Can you tell me a little bit more about them? So don't assume things. I think there are a lot of people out there that will say people love GIFs. Not everyone loves GIFs. Images always do better. Like I've seen some small businesses that are doing more serious stuff where images don't perform that well. Really good thought leadership content for them works much better. So don't make assumptions. Try and get a sense of who they are. One of the things that we get our students to do right at the beginning, when they're working with a business in the training, or when they graduate and work with a business, is develop what we call user personas, which we've kind of taken from the digital space. And it's really about understanding your audiences on quite a granular level. So if they are mums between 30 and 55, what else are they into? So it might be that you've got the new mums who are kind of maybe 30 to 35, and they might be into kind of, more kind of cool brands. Maybe they live in East London. Maybe you've got slightly older mums who are in their 40s. They've moved out into the home counties because they can't afford to live in London. Maybe they've got 3 children. They're a bit older. So start really understanding who they are and what it is that kind of motivates them and why they're going to be drawn to your business and not other people's businesses. And then once you kind of know who they are, you can think, okay, what type of content is going to work for them? So it might be different depending on who they are. So the more you can understand about them, the more you can nail your kind of content strategy. There's a whole bunch of different formats for content these days. They might seem a bit overwhelming. You've got Buzzfeed has loads of lists. They do really fun quizzes. You can have really long-form kind of text articles. There's images, there's photos, there's illustrations, there's infographics. It can be a bit overwhelming, but the more you can understand about your business and your audience, the more you can think which format is going to be suitable for what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then once you've got a sense of your audiences and the content, then you can start to understand which platforms are going to reach them. So if you're the stationery lady over there, I would hope the stationery lady is basically on Instagram. It's like the perfect platform for her. So you can get a sense of which platforms then you should be on, because you can't, as a small business, be on every single social media platform where you'd have no time to do anything else. You just spend your entire time tweeting and Instagram posting. So kind of nail the top. It's much better also to do 1 really well than it is to do 5 really badly, or do 2 really well. So kind of prioritize the ones and maybe then have a plan to go onto a different channel in a year, but just stick with 1 and making 1 super amazing rather than doing a really sort of bad job of them all. Afterwards, if you want a user persona template that we give all of our students, I can share it with you. And it's sort of like you just fill in the boxes, who am I, what things I'm interested in. Consistently, once they've finished our training, I'd say sort of 40% of the students, when they're asked for their 3 key learnings, they say the user personas were the most useful for everything, because it forced them to think about who they are trying to target, and then everything they did, they would always have in the back of their mind their user personas, like what would she think about this, or what would he think about this. So I can share a really useful template with anyone after if you'd like it. So the next one is quite obvious. So once you've nailed your strategy, you need to do some really basic things, some really quick wins around your content. And the first one is make it shareable. So if you look at Buzzfeed, they have these. So if you have a blog or a website and you've got content on there, you want to have all your social sharing buttons on there and make it super easy for people to go, I'm just going to share that. I'm going to pin it. I'm going to tweet it, whatever it is. Buzzfeed do that on every single piece of content. So that's a kind of top tip there, and it's quite easy, and it's fairly easy to do, and any kind of developer, if you don't already have them, should be able to help you to do that. And then the second one is, particularly with written content, make it very user-friendly. So if you are writing blogs, so say you're kind of a fashion retailer, and you're writing a blog on the kind of latest autumn-winter trends, think about how people actually read online, because it's quite different to how they read offline. So people skim read. Really, it's amazing how much quicker people kind of read when they're just sort of scrolling down, because lots of people are accessing the content from their mobiles, etc. And you can see from Buzzfeed that they paragraph all their content, they break it up with visuals, so they make it really sort of easy to take in the content rather than just having a whole bunch of overwhelming text. They will also use bullet points and kind of numbers, just things that lead the kind of the reader, and also headings and things like that are really good. So sharing and making it kind of user friendly are just 2 really quick and easy wins that you can do. And then what else can you learn from Buzzfeed? Well, I went through and analysed loads of content that was on there fairly recently. And there's a huge amount of stuff on there that is quite emotional, whether that's stuff that's funny. There's a lot of stuff where it's just pure comedy, and it's purely about entertaining people. But there's also really kind of inspiring stuff on there, really inspiring stories. There's also quite controversial stuff. There's sort of stuff that makes people angry. But there's just a lot of stuff that is emotional, and that's because people generally are emotional creatures. So you can learn from that. interestingly, the more positive emotions tend to do better. So funny, heartwarming, inspiring, those tend to do better than negative emotions, apart from stuff that's really controversial that gets people angry. And I think then people are like, they get really sort of pet up, and they want to share it because they just think that's disgraceful. I'm going to share that with someone because I think everyone should know about it. But other than the anger, positive stuff tends to do a lot better. This is just an example of one of our students that was working with an online pet shop company. She did a really nice campaign, a social media campaign that was called Dog Days of Summer, because she was running it over the summer. And she got people to share pictures of their dogs enjoying the sunshine. There were dogs eating ice creams. I shared one of my dog in sunglasses. There were dogs sort of playing in the seaside. She got so many shares from that. Because it kind of played into that kind of heartwarming, look at that dog, he's having fun. And then she managed to massively increase the web traffic purely from all of those kind of photos that were shared. And she got the actual pet owner themselves to take loads of photos of their dogs. So that was a very kind of image-focused one, but it really kind of did that sort of heartwarming thing. So that did really well. So you can kind of try different types of content that's emotional. You might do stuff that's inspiring or heartwarming, or you could do stuff that's kind of funny. Be quite careful about doing things that are controversial. I think some brands should be quite careful about dipping their toe in that. For some, perhaps campaigning, lobbying organizations, a lot of the stuff they do is controversial. But if you're like a retailer, you might want to sort of steer slightly clear of that one. I've already talked about the images of people's pets. So in terms of inspirational stuff, if you're all selling to people, you'll hopefully have some really nice customer success stories that you can get and you could kind of share out to people. Rather than share like just pictures of your product, share stuff of people using them and talking about how amazing they are. I've seen really funny, slightly spoofed product demos that have like 20 million shares on YouTube. I mean, it's crazy. There's like a blending company that makes a blender that's super high-powered. And then they did these really stupid product demos of blending really stupid things like iPhones and like marbles. And they've had over 20 million shares, and I think their video cost $60. So you don't have to spend loads of money to get a lot of reach. People just loved it because it was just really stupid and funny. And then, stuff that's nostalgic can do quite well. So say you're a kitchenware shop, you could get people to share family recipes and stuff and what people used to eat in the 70s. What was your mum's, what was your favorite meal when you were a kid, stuff like that. So you can kind of think outside of the box. You might sell kitchen utensils, but you can still bring some humor and some emotional stories into that. So as well as the emotional content that's on Buzzfeed, there's a whole bunch of useful content, basically. Educational stuff, how-tos, tips. So that's another one that you could go for in terms of creating content. You can see all of these. There's a lot of stuff around DIY. There's a lot of recipes and things like that. So that's a really big one. Particularly for certain kinds of retailers. So in the fashion space, you can have, how to wear. In the kitchen, in that kitchenware example, you can share recipes, obviously featuring your amazing products. So it's about being kind of informative, allowing people to kind of take action and do something that they couldn't do before, just helping them out. Ultimately, it's about, in this section, in the useful section, what we call like value add content. You're kind of adding value to your audiences. You're not just talking about yourself. You're kind of helping them address pain points and kind of making their lives easier, which they will love you for and which they will want to share with their friends. So just some examples of how you could kind of translate that to whatever businesses you're kind of working on. So a baby product one is really obvious there, is that you can push out kind of, parenting tips and things like that. Say you've got new breast pumps in, you can kind of do little how-to videos of how to use them. So once you've kind of thought, okay, this is my goal, I know I want to sell stuff from my website, so I need to kind of get people to share. That's my goal, and I've got a really clear understanding of my audience. I know what they are, I know who they are, I know what they want from me. You might think, okay, I've got ideas about the kind of content that I want to push out. I'm going to do some kind of how-tos, I've got some stuff that I want people to kind of to action that's going to help them, and then I also want to push out some quite inspirational sort of customer success stories. So once you kind of get a sense of that, it's like which format. I went through that whole list of formats with the lists and the quizzes and the infographics. It's like, so if you know kind of what type of content you want, it's like what format are you then going to put that content in? Because some format might work better for different audiences and different purposes than others. So interestingly, Buzzfeed did a piece of content that already been shared by loads of similar people to Buzzfeed, like Mashable, and Buzzfeed just turned it into a quiz, and it was one of their most successful pieces of content. And it wasn't anything new and original because other people were already sharing it. It's just that they turned it into a really easy, quite fun, entertaining quiz, and then everyone just started sharing that quiz with their friends. So just being quite clever about the actual format that you're using could make people want to share it more. So you've kind of nailed your content, you've thought about your format, you know your kind of audiences. So, you know, let's look at some examples. You've got students, young professionals, and kind of first-time mums, very different types of audiences. So if you're selling kitchenware, it might be that you've got a new range, and it might be kind of quite a good budget range for students. So you might think, okay, well, what format is going to work best for them, and you might turn it into a quiz. Which kitchen utensil are you? I mean, it's like, it sounds slightly ridiculous, but you know, it could be like, are you a little bit spiky? Do you get like annoyed easily? You're a fork. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's just thinking a little bit outside of the box about what is going to appeal to those students, because they're probably not going to want to engage with a really boring product demo of someone using a ladle. So just kind of think about, you know, who you're trying to reach, and then what format might be best for what it is that you're trying to do. So say you're selling fashion, you're a fashion retailer. You might do like a written blog that's got sort of images in there that showcase the new kind of autumn-winter trends that have got your products in there. But you're also looking at, you know, how to translate that into the young professional sort of life, like what they might wear, how to wear it, you know, how to wear stuff for different body types, things like that. So that could work well as a kind of as a blog. But say in that breast pump example, if you're trying to kind of show mums how to use a breast pump, the best way is probably a video. So actually thinking about your audience and what format is super important, rather than just assuming everything should be in a blog. Can I just ask, actually, who is using any type of video content marketing? Is anyone doing video? No. Every time I ask that question, everyone's like, no. So another good one is being kind of topical. BuzzFeed are amazing at this, actually. I mean, obviously they've got a whole team of content creators that just churn stuff out super quickly. They're probably like scouring news constantly. But they would just jump on topical bandwagons, whether it's serious news stuff or whether perhaps it's Thanksgiving, or, you know, it could be Christmas, or it could be the summer, and they're pushing out recipes that relate to the time of year. So think also about what's kind of coming up in the diary. You know, it could be that if you know it's going to be super hot and everyone's predicted a heat wave, and you're selling kind of blenders and kitchenware and sort of, you know, glassware, that you might push out a little recipe of like how to make frozen margaritas. So, and then people might go, oh my God, I'm so hot, I really want a frozen margarita, and would be more likely to engage with that just because you've kind of tailored it really well to the time of year that you're talking about. So the next one is to design your content for social, because that is basically where people are sharing it. No one is emailing it to each other. People are either tweeting it to each other, or they're pinning it onto their boards, or that, you know, they're putting it on their Facebook pages. So kind of think about the content and which platform it's for, and different don't think you can make one piece of content for all the platforms either. You need to think, okay, if I'm on Facebook, this is how it's going to work on Facebook. So BuzzFeed are really clever at doing this, because they share loads and loads of videos, but all of their videos, like their recipe videos and stuff, they work without sound, because the default setting for Facebook, when anyone is on their Facebook page, there is no sound. So people are much more likely to engage with the content because they've actually got stuff written, and you can watch the entire recipe without any sound and you can still get the content. So just think about things like that. If you're using a platform, research the platform and understand how that platform works before designing content for that platform. Because you could equally do something fairly simple with a video that didn't have any sound, you know, the frozen margarita stuff, for example. So you've done your strategy. You've done there's a lot. I know you're all going, oh my God, I'm never creating any content. This is just too much. You've got your format, you've thought about your subject, and you kind of nailed your platforms. You know, you're in a really good position. Another one is, which is why I asked you about the video, is Buzzfeed are like ridiculous at sort of, I guess, like forecasting trends. So they were all over video content before everyone started saying video content was going to be like the next thing. They were already doing it. They could see that that was the way that things were going. And so they have just got so many videos. It's insane. And it's really interesting because anytime I sort of talk to people, no one is doing any video content marketing, which is fascinating because statistics show that basically by 2017, like almost 70% of internet traffic is going to be video. So if you're not doing any video and you're not even thinking about doing video, that is not necessarily great. I think a lot of people think video is really expensive, but the Blender example that I just told you about costs $60. Like, you don't have to spend loads of money. You can't put up video where it's already blurry and the sound quality is, you can't really hear anything. But people don't expect super professional quality video. Loads of people are doing really great stuff that is actually quite basic, where they've just got I've seen people do quite good stuff with their iPhones and a lapel microphone, which costs like 50 quid. So don't think you have to spend loads of money, but definitely think, is there something I could do in the video space? Because everyone is going to be watching video. I mean, I'm sure people will still read some blogs, but as you can see, it's basically taking over. And then Buzzfeed are also all over Snapchat already. I'm not saying you should all be all over Snapchat. I think people, when I say Snapchat, get really scared because they're like, I haven't even done Twitter yet. Don't talk to me about Snapchat. It's just about being aware of what's out there. And if you've not nailed Twitter and Facebook, or Twitter and Instagram, don't think about Snapchat yet. Focus on the big platforms first. But Snapchat is rising, and it's not just young people anymore that are on there. Like almost half of people are over 35 now. So it's a kind of new rising platform. But just kind of be aware of what's like out there and on the horizon, just like Buzzfeed are. And then the final one is a kind of slightly boring sort of maths one, where it's not all super fun at Buzzfeed. They basically brought in this woman who is a data, and she heads up all of their data team. When they brought her in, their statistics went through the roof, because what she does is she basically looks at all the content that has gone out. I mean, this job sounds like the most boring job in the world, but she obviously loves it. They look at all the content that goes out. Then she's got a whole team of people looking at the data on which content is working best. And then they will do more of the content that is working best. So it's just a slightly scientific approach to your content. So don't just push stuff out there. And this is also just your tweets. Never mind, if you've made a video or a blog. Always look at your sort of analytics. Always look at the data that sits behind what it is that you're doing, which is the process that we teach all of our students. It's quite data-driven. So they all freak out when they get to the data week. But by the time they finish, they're sort of like, okay, yeah, no, I could totally do it. So we do get that it's sort of quite scary, all that data, because a lot of people are not familiar with numbers. But if you're not analysing what's working, you could just be wasting your time. And you're small business owners, like, you don't have a lot of time. So if you decided that you were only going to do one piece of content a week or one piece of content a month, say, still look and see, like, how does that do? And then when you tweet that content, how does it do on Twitter? Are people engaging with it? And then, like, mix it up, try different things, and then just sort of see what works best. Don't just assume that things are working. Go back and look at the data. So we get all of our students to basically test some stuff. So they prepare stuff that maybe isn't going to take them a lot of time. They test it. They then go and measure all the data. Then we force them to sit down with like a cup of tea, when the kids are not there, obviously, and look and see, what does that data actually mean? So are people engaging more with images? Does video do really well? Are there some subject themes that maybe are doing better than other subject themes? So just really kind of getting a sense of what's working. And then once they look and do that reflective piece, they can think, okay, that's doing really well, I'm going to do more of that. And that clearly didn't work because for whatever reason. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes I will spend I remember I crafted this tweet once of my dog, and I sort of stood him in front of the blackboard and drew stuff around him. It took ages because he is not very well trained. And people didn't really engage with it. And then I tweeted this inspirational quote that I just thought was a bit shit, and I was just on the bus. People loved it. It's like, you sometimes you just don't know what people are going to like, so you have to sort of mix it up and try different things out. So Can I just ask, who actually uses their sort of analytics, either on the platforms, the social platforms, or on a blog? Do people go and okay, that's good. So, and how kind of often do you do that? Once a week? Hands up for once a week. That's pretty good. Once a month. You're in the back. She's like, probably not as much as they should. I mean, that's great. Just kind of keep doing that. It's like so important. Because otherwise you could just be wasting your time, and you just don't have time to waste. I mean, I'm a small business owner, like I know it's crazy. So you can look at traffic, you can look at engagement metrics, all of that sort of stuff. And do you use Google Analytics for your websites? Yeah, I mean Google Analytics it's free, and it's quite overwhelming when the students first go in there, but it is amazing. And the social tab where you can go and find out all your social media referrals and everything is the best thing ever. I mean, I used to be a scientist, so I love it, but I do understand that it's not natural for everyone. Think about, so I said sort of some formats, do they work better than others? But also, are there some times of day that work better? So we know that our audiences on our platforms are super active at night time, because they've basically gone through the whole day, and then they've put their kids to bed, they sit down on the sofa, and they're like, thank fuck for that. And then they just, glass of wine, and that's when they're really active online. So we do push a lot of our stuff in the evening, because that's when we get the most engagement. And then sometimes there's a little bit of a spike at like 5 in the morning, because like moms get up at like some crazy hour. So there's also interesting things that could kind of, you can learn from the times of day as well. And then also, are the trends the same on all the platforms that you're using? So we noticed that Facebook, like video, just does massively well on Facebook, because Facebook is sneakily probably pushing video up the ranks, because it's investing so much in video, so it wants everyone to use video. Whereas it doesn't do, for us, video does less well on Twitter, but images and inspirational quotes, which I hate, but other people seem to love, they also do really well. So it's not necessarily the same for all of your platforms either. So then refine, as I said, like tweak your strategy, and then basically just keep doing that. Don't just do it once. Don't just sort of go, oh, I've done some content and I've learned, and now I'm going to do this. It's like, we get in the training, the students have to do it every week. Once they graduate, we tell them to do it a minimum of once a month, but ideally keep doing it every week, even if it's only sort of 10 minutes. So that's all the kind of content that I've got. There's quite a lot for you to kind of digest. But if you've got questions now, you can ask me. Then I can also share the slides with you. But I also actually have like a video recording of the slides that I could also share with you, because I know sometimes it's quite a lot to take in when you're kind of sitting down. But I will now take questions.
Questions?
Oh, we've got one over here.
How do you create your video to get the best SEO results?
I gave that to Richard, my head of marketing, who basically does all of that. We use YouTube. I actually just had a really interesting chat with our new content producer at YouTube, who works at Google. And it's just about being really smart with your kind of meta tagging and your tagging. And then in terms of sort of general SEO on the platforms, it's just about kind of pushing the stuff out there. I'm not an SEO expert, by the way. I have to hold up my hand to that, because I've got Richard who does it for me. It's about pushing it out on platforms that have the most impact on your kind of SEO, which for us we find is Twitter and Google, not so much for Facebook. But we use YouTube because ultimately YouTube is the second biggest search engine behind Google. So it's not Bing and it's not Yahoo. It's Google and then it's YouTube. So that is mainly where people, if you're thinking about kind of SEO, people want to find video content, that's when they're going to YouTube. So just making sure, it's kind of boring, but when you make a video, we just go through and do like all of our tagging. We've got keyword tags set up in our default settings, so every single video applies the same tagging system. So you haven't just got to go keep it in there doing it all over again. But that's kind of what we do. And then tweet Richard Miranda if you want to know more, because he's our SEO expert. I'm the social expert, he's our SEO expert.
Hello, sorry I missed the first bit, so apologies
That's
if I'm
all right.
asking something you covered, but I do quite a lot of video and all sorts of other stuff, but I do struggle to get stuff shared, so can you give some more tips on that? Like you mentioned about the social sharing buttons. What's really good for getting people to share it?
Well, so what type of video content are you making, and have you aligned your video content to like what your audiences kind of want to see? So give me 3 types of video content you've made maybe in the past sort of month?
So I work for a bar, so we just launched a new terrace area. So I just did like people having drinks on the terrace, just kind of showcased it. Also just kind of inside like events that are going on in the bar. Mostly around that stuff, but I just find few people watch it, but just getting people to share it is proving a real problem at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, people don't tend to share what I would consider that walkthrough thing to be like a product demo. I would unless there's, did you see the bit about the kind of emotional side? So unless it's sort of funny or, I mean, I'm not sure how you would manage to make your content inspirational. So for you, because you're a bar, funny might be the space that you want to kind of go with. Actually just making stuff quite humorous so people will want to go and sort of share it with someone. So I use an example of a company that make blenders who spend $60 making it's a product demo, but it's hilarious, where they just blend stuff. They blend like an iPhone, they blend marbles, just like really stupid things. And they had like 20 million shares of a product demo of a blender, but just because they made it funny. And then there's another one from a very boring sounding company who basically send out razors once a month. That's what they do to men, send out razors so you don't have to remember to buy razors. They've also had 20 million views because they've just got a guy. I can send you the link, actually, if you give me your business card. It's hilarious. It's just got a guy in the warehouse of this place, right, seemingly very boring, and he's just doing this spoof kind of video where he walks through and he breaks through this sort of piece of paper, and he's sort of like, he's just really over the top. And it's just really hilarious, and like people just wanted to share it because it was funny. So for you, you might need to kind of think about bringing some humor into your content so that people might want to share it.
It's like $1 billion shave, I think, the shaving one. Yeah, I've seen it.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one. $1 billion shave. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous because it's the most boring like product ever, but you know, they managed to get 20 million shares on their video because it's hilarious. So because you're a bar and you're probably, I think that's the sort of space for you to maybe try and own, is just to make it like a bit funnier than it is. Because would you want to share a product demo of a new terrace launch? Like, would you share that with your friends? That's something to ask. Would I go and share this with my friend John? And if the answer is no, other people are not going to go and share it either.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
One last question. So, thank you very much, Kathryn.
No worries.
It's fantastic. If anyone wants to ask Kathryn a few questions afterwards or needs a digital mum for their business, then
yes,
if
you do think, oh my God, like I cannot run this Twitter account anymore, it's driving me over the edge, then you could come and get a mum to manage it for you. So you can also talk to me about that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.